11 minutes past 11 in the morning, 12th of August, 1940, southern coast of England. Inside a wooden operations hut, a young plotter leaned over a large map. Her hand hovered above a marker, headphones pressed tight. A voice crackled through the line. Raid detected. Multiple aircraft. Bearing 110, range 100 miles. For years, British pilots had taken off blind. They climbed into open sky, searching for an enemy that might already be above them. But this morning was different. This morning the enemy had been seen before it arrived. But this was only the beginning of the problem. At number 11 Group Headquarters, Air Vice Marshal Keith Park stood over the plotting table. Colored markers moved slowly across the map, each one representing a formation of German aircraft. The system was new, fragile, dependent on telephone lines, human interpretation, and timing measured in seconds. If any part failed, the fighters would still be blind. Along the coastline, the chain-home radar stations tracked the incoming formation. Their tall steel towers sent pulses into the sky. When those pulses returned, they painted a picture of something massive. But radar could not tell everything. It could not distinguish between bombers and fighters. At 11:21 in the morning, the order was given. Scramble. At RAF Kenley, pilots of number 64 Squadron ran toward their Spitfires. Engines roared to life. One pilot, Pilot Officer James Carter, climbed into his cockpit with a new kind of tension. He had been briefed on radar. He had heard the claims. But this would be the first time his life depended on it. As his aircraft lifted off the runway, he did not scan the horizon. Instead, he listened. A calm voice came through his radio. Vector 300, Angels 15, bandits approaching. This was new. Direction, altitude, information. For the first time, he was not guessing. But the real danger had not yet appeared. Across the channel, the German formation was already splitting. Heinkel 111 bombers of Kampfgeschwader. 53 held a steady course. Above them, Messerschmitt 109 fighters of Jagdgeschwader 52 climbed higher. The Luftwaffe had studied British defenses. They expected interception near the coast. What they did not expect was timing this precise. Back in the operations room, confusion began to spread. Radar showed one large formation, but observers on the ground reported two. The system was struggling to keep up. If the fighters were sent to the wrong altitude, they would miss the bombers completely, and fuel would not allow a second chance. Pilot Officer Carter climbed through 10,000 feet, his oxygen mask pressed against his face. The sky was clear. Empty. Too empty. Control, I have no visual. There was a pause. Then the reply came, tighter now. Continue, Vector. They are above you. Above. Carter pulled back on the stick. The Spitfire climbed harder, engine straining. Fuel was already dropping. At full climb, he had less than 40 minutes before he would have to turn back. And still, nothing. But this was only the beginning of the problem. Inside the German formation, Oberleutnant Karl Fischer scanned the sky. He trusted speed, altitude, surprise. He did not trust that the British could find him this early. Then he saw something. Tiny shapes, climbing fast, too fast. Enemy fighters, below and climbing. The advantage was gone. For the first time, German crews realized something had changed. They were no longer invisible. Back over England, the plotting table erupted in movement. New reports, new bearings, conflicting data. The system was overloaded. Lines of communication stretched thin. One delay, one wrong calculation. And entire squadrons could be sent into empty sky. Or worse, directly into the path of enemy fighters. At 11:32 in the morning, Carter finally saw them. Dark shapes against the sun, higher than expected. Contact. Multiple bandits. Engaging. He pushed the throttle forward. The aircraft surged. This was the moment radar had promised, but reality was far more chaotic, because the enemy was not where they were supposed to be, and fuel was running out faster than planned. What would you have done in this situation? Trust the system, or trust your eyes? Carter chose to climb higher, and that decision would place him directly into the path of something far more dangerous than bombers. Because hidden above the formation, the German fighters were already diving, and the first advantage radar had given was about to disappear. 11:34 in the morning. 12,000 feet above southern England. Pilot Officer James Carter never saw the first Messerschmitt. He only heard the warning, "Break! Break! Fighters diving from above." The voice came too late. A Messerschmitt 109 tore through the formation, its twin machine guns and 20mm cannon firing in a short, controlled burst. Tracers cut across the sky. One Spitfire rolled violently, smoke pouring from its engine. The altitude advantage had shifted, and in seconds, the careful guidance from the ground no longer mattered. But this was only the beginning of the problem. Carter pulled hard to the left. The aircraft shuddered under the strain. He scanned upward, finally spotting them. Dark shapes, higher, faster, already climbing back for another pass. The German pilots had adapted instantly. They realized the British were being guided, so they attacked the guidance itself, not the radar towers, but the time window. Each interception depended on precise positioning. Seconds mattered, altitude mattered. And now those calculations were being broken mid-air. Back at number 11 Group headquarters, Keith Park watched the board change faster than his operators could track. Reports came in overlapping. Enemy fighters above, bombers turning east, squadron off course. The system was still working, but it was no longer clean. And that made it dangerous, because half information could be worse than none. At 11:41 in the morning, a critical decision had to be made. Send reinforcements or hold them back. If Park committed too many squadrons, later raids would pass unchallenged. If he held them, the current interception could collapse. This was the hidden cost of radar. It gave vision, but demanded perfect judgment. And the real danger had not yet appeared. Over the channel, a second German formation was approaching, larger, higher, and completely undetected for several minutes due to signal confusion. That gap would change everything. In the air, Carter locked onto a Heinkel 111 bomber. Large, steady, vulnerable. He moved into position behind it, closed to 200 yards, pressed the trigger. His 8 machine guns fired in unison. The recoil vibrated through the wings. Tracers struck the bomber's fuselage. Pieces broke away. For a moment, it felt like control had returned. This was how it was supposed to work. Radar finds, fighters intercept, bombers fall. Simple. But war was never simple. A shadow crossed his cockpit. Another Messerschmitt. Too close. Carter rolled sharply. The German fighter overshot, but not before firing. Bullets struck his wing. The aircraft jolted. Fuel pressure dropped slightly. Not critical, not yet. But the margin was shrinking, and time was running out. Back in the operations room, a new plot appeared. Unidentified, fast, closing. Operators hesitated. Was it friendly? Enemy? Or a ghost returned from faulty radar? Those seconds of hesitation spread outward. Squadrons were not redirected. Altitude corrections were delayed. And in the air, pilots paid for it. At 11:52 in the morning, the second German wave arrived. Higher than expected. Escorted by fresh fighters, they fell directly onto the already engaged British squadrons. What had been a controlled interception turned into layered chaos. Carter saw it instantly. More aircraft, more contrails, more gunfire. Too many targets, too many threats. Control, we have additional bandits. Repeat, additional bandits. No answer. The radio was flooded, voices overlapped, orders collided. Static filled the gaps. For the first time that day, the system went silent, and the sky became blind again. But this was the moment everything changed, because something else had already changed inside the pilots themselves. They had seen the difference. They had felt it. The moment before contact, when a calm voice gave direction, when the sky was no longer empty. Even now, as chaos returned, they fought differently, more focused, more aggressive, because they knew someone had seen the enemy first. Carter made one final pass at the bombers. Ammunition was nearly gone. Fuel was dropping toward the critical mark. Less than 15 minutes before he would have to turn back. He fired a final burst. One engine of the Heinkel caught fire. The bomber began to descend. He did not watch it crash. He could not. A voice finally broke through the radio. A return to base. Repeat, return to base immediately. The battle was ending. Not because the enemy was gone, but because the fighters could not stay. This was the hidden limit of radar. It could bring you to the fight, but it could not keep you there. Hours later, reports were compiled. Intercept times had improved. Fighter losses had decreased compared to earlier weeks. Bombing accuracy of the Luftwaffe had been disrupted, not stopped, but weakened. And most importantly, the illusion of invisibility was gone. German crews began reporting earlier interceptions, unexpected resistance, a system they did not fully understand. For the Royal Air Force, something fundamental had shifted. Pilots no longer climbed into empty sky. They climbed with purpose, with direction, with warning. Years later, many would describe the first moment, the voice in their headset, the vector, the altitude, the certainty. One pilot said it simply. It was the day the sky started talking back. Radar did not win the Battle of Britain alone, but without it, the outcome may have been very different, because in war, seeing first is often the difference between survival and destruction. And on that morning in August 1940, for the first time, Britain could see